Hi, my name is Natasha Pimentel. I am a birthing doula from Brooklyn, New York.
So, Natasha, what made you want to be a doula?
Um, I had an unnecessary C-section with my first son, and from there, when I had my second son, I was just looking for a VBAC. The only caring, supportive, nurturing care provider I was able to find was a home birth midwife. So we went in that direction and they kept telling me to hire a doula, hire a doula. I had no idea what that was. And I was like, having a stranger at my birth, it didn't make any sense. Well, fast forward to my birth, she was everything I didn't know I always needed. She was coming in with, she just knew exactly what to do before I could even ask for it. And after I had my second son, I knew that that was what I wanted to be for women. I wanted to serve women in the capacity that she had served me, and just give that back to the world.
So, how long after you gave birth did you like start the process of becoming a doula?
Um, within a, I would say, my son was born in 2013, and I would say like 2015, 2016. I exclusively breastfed.
Mm,
So I wasn't trying to leave him at all.
yeah, and being a doula is like a lot of work.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah.
and what would you say is like your doula style? Like some doulas are more, like you said, your doula, she knew what you needed before you didn't even have to ask her. Some doulas are more like coaches or some are more like back, energetic. Like what's your doula style?
I say I take a more holistic approach. Definitely, just not like a one size fits all. I think it depends on the client. I don't just take one type of client, or I don't just only take hospital births. Don't just take birthing center births or home births. So I think you have to adapt depending on the type of birth that you're attending, the type of client that you are supporting. But yeah, I'm as hands-on as you allow me to be. I do think it's important to build a certain level of intimacy, and I'm honored to say that a lot of my clients that were clients are now friends today. Like we become a part of each other's village. Um, but yeah, I would say that's such an interesting question.
Well, and then because you do get different clients, but you don't accept every client,
No, I
right?
personally, especially for where I'm at in my life, um, I tend to be a bit more exclusive. Just because I need to make sure that I'm showing up first for myself to be able to best support anyone around me. And I, as much as I love being a doula, I am also a wife and a mother. So I need to make sure that I'm balancing everything as best I can. So um, I do like a client who is willing to put in the work for the birth that they want as well. I think that's important. There needs to be a certain level of education that they're willing to do. They're, open to learning and, understanding that birth really is 80% mental and 20% physical. So
Yeah.
getting to like that mental aspect.
So when you're interviewing a potential client, like your ideal client would be somebody who already does research and is becoming more knowledgeable about birth.
Yeah, I would say I like to work with a variety of people, but my ideal client is someone who is is in a place in their life that they understand what they're about to transition into. And you know what I mean? It doesn't matter how you choose to transition into motherhood, whether it's your first birth or your sixth. It's just a matter of understanding and respecting the birthing process. I think we take for granted how many women are just like, women have been doing this all the time. I'm going to do great, and that's that. Which I wish that were the case. Being here in New York City, the numbers scream otherwise. So it's super important that, you're open. My ideal client is someone who is able to pivot, someone
Mm.
who's able to create. I'm not big on birth plans. I'm really big on birth visions. I can help you to create the vision you want for your birth, but you have to be open to pivoting, which means, for example, one of my last births, it was the birthing center birth, and baby wasn't responding well to contractions. We had to do a transfer. I need to see that you're mutable and that in those moments you're going to be able to pivot and it's not going to totally throw you off the deep end. And she did incredibly. It was still beautiful, one of my favorite hospital births to date.
I saw those pictures. They were so beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned the numbers. So I was going to ask you, the next question I was going to ask you was like, if there was one thing you could change about your work, what would it be? So what numbers specifically are you talking about?
I'm speaking to the maternal mortality rate here in New York City. As our Black moms are dying at a much higher rate than any other race here in New York City. So if it was one thing I could change, it would be the maternal mortality rate. But also just um, a, this word, it's such a controversial, it's such a controversial word, but obstetric abuse in general.
Mhm.
I think we need to hold our care providers accountable. And I really just wish that midwives, OBs could kind of be on the same page together, where they could create a certain respectful level of care that every woman deserves versus this is how I do it, so that's how you're going to do it, and there's nothing else to talk about.
And it's so crazy that like we're still talking about that in 2022. Like what?
Yeah, I
And
actually just today I saw that in Alabama, there's one of the hospitals, I'll send it to you, is having their patients fill out a document that if they have a doula, this is what your doula can do and this is what they can't do. And one of the things they can't do is interfere with they definitely can't speak on behalf of their clients, which I think to me is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about doulas. They're like, oh, I want an advocate. And it's like, well, legally, I'm not your advocate. What I can do though is in a moment where there's a decision to be made, we can, sit down together, go over everything. I can give you my experience, my wisdom, my knowledge, my education, my training, and then empower you to make the best decision for yourself with all options on the table. But I myself would never advocate on behalf of my clients. Um, but there was things in that document that said you cannot speak up for your client, you do not interfere with any type of care or their decision making, you will be asked to leave. It was very interesting to read. I'm like, it is 2022 and this is what you're having. Like the doula needs to sign it and the patient.
that reminds me of the conversation that we were having on the live where I forget what her name was. She was talking about how doulas are a third party witness to what's
Yeah.
going on in the hospital.
Yeah.
And so, what happens when that doula is part of the system? You don't really have a third party witness, you have a compliant person
Mhm.
working for the hospital, really.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's just pivot. What has been like your most memorable doula moment to date?
Um, my most memorable doula moment to date, uh, that's an unfair question.
I know.
But I would have to go to one of my more recent births. It was a VBAC after two C-sections, and it was a home birth after two C-sections, actually. And it was one of the most cathartic, beautiful, spiritual experiences I've ever had in my life. From the very beginning, it was just phenomenal. And this was a decision that was made uh, the pivot into home birth was a decision that was made, I believe, after 32 weeks. So that in of itself brought its own challenges, but it was something that she had wanted well before uh, 20. Well, it's something she's wanted since she's had her first child. Um, but that was beautiful to see someone. There's a certain power that comes with a VBAC because you have to fight. One of the biggest things we do as doulas is we remind women of their power, and we have to constantly affirm them to trust their bodies and trust the process. When you've had not just one C-section, two C-sections, where now two OBs have told you, no, your body can't do this, it won't do it. There's a certain level of strength and tenacity and resilience you have to overcome that. And then you see it in that moment. You watch mom fight herself, push herself out of her way, and birth through that new moment. Yeah.
So what was her like reaction afterwards? Did she was like in complete bliss?
Um, yeah, we all were. It was phenomenal. I think the most beautiful part for me was her mom. She didn't tell her mom she was having a home birth.
Mm,
Kept it a secret. So at a certain point, and this isn't very close, like it's mom, dad, their three daughters, and those three sisters are super close and they're close with mom. So mom from jump, from the night before, knows something's up because everyone's moving weird. Obviously, both the sisters are at the birth. People aren't answering the phone. They are answering the phone. She's like, she knew in the back of her mind that my client wanted this home birth. So she's trying to put two and two together. And now we get the call that mom is in front of the house, parked in front of the house, and does like, it doesn't know what to do. So the sisters are all, talking. And as a doula, you want to protect the birthing space as much as possible. So I took her sisters aside and I said, would it be helpful to have one of the professionals, whether it's the midwife assistant, or myself, go out and speak to her just to validate how safe the client is and how this is the best option. And she's doing great and progressing. And she's like, yeah, we think it would be a good idea. So we sent one of the midwives out and she had a wonderful conversation. And mom came in and the tears of joy and relief and just the energy in the room, like mom stepped up and stepped in a way where she knew, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to serve here. I'm going to do that. So to me, the biggest surprise, I'm never, the women are always going to know how strong they are. But we now saw a mother who had a C-section, or her sisters had C-sections. She had multiple C-sections. She rewrote the narrative for all of them. So
nice.
my biggest takeaway from that birth was watching how proud the mom was. Like mom was pushing, mom was powering through, and that the look on her face after everything was done and how proud she was of her daughter. Even now, it just makes me want to like,
Yeah, because it's like something that it wouldn't have changed if she would have just had another C-section. Like everybody would just keep going down the line having C-sections, you know?
yeah. And it was beautiful because there was a point where the mom looked at her and she's like, she's my guerrera, which is like, she's my warrior. And I was just like, because I always call all of my mamas at my birth, well, mostly my mamas, warrior goddesses, because they are. You go to war with yourself. And the woman that's birthed for every single birth, she comes out a goddess, a warrior in her own right. So,
Yes. I love that. I love that so much. Okay, well, what's an important question you ask your clients before taking them on? So like in that interview process, what's something that you think is important for you?
what are their expectations and how fixed are they? Like, so for example, there's this idea of the births you have these expectations of what you want. I need to see how attached you are to those expectations. As much as I'd like to say, um, relinquish all expectations, surrender them, because that's not how, like, we know that. We know expectations are typically like premeditated resentments, right?
Hmm.
But the truth of the matter is, especially going into a process like this, which is such a big event, there's going to be a certain level of expectation. So I just want to see how married you are to those expectations and how mutable you are. Because, like I said, what's most important is that you're able to pivot and you're able to understand that birth is your first lesson in parenthood. And in parenthood, one thing you can't do is you can't plan your kids. You can prepare as much as you want, but life is going to throw things at you and you have to be mutable. You have to be willing to pivot. So,
That's so true. And if you had to give just one tip to somebody who is pregnant or who's looking for a doula, what tip would you give them?
um, trust your body, trust yourself, trust your intuition. I think as women, it's a much deeper level than just like dealing with birth. I think as women, we have trouble trusting ourselves. That therefore we have trouble trusting our bodies. It's most important to know that no one knows what's best for you except you. And when you're pregnant, no one knows what's best for your child except you. Like it's that mommy intuition. That child is being grown and sustained within you. You know what's best. Educate yourself, trust yourself, empower yourself to know that you're the one who's going to be making the decisions for the rest, well, not the rest of their life, but for the next 18 years for that child. And the most important decision you could make is building your birth team. So
What if they say, I don't trust myself? Like, what would be the work that they have to do to get to that place where they do trust themselves?
I mean, I'm a big proponent. If you have trouble trusting your body, you got to work through that before you get pregnant. But obviously, if we're
Mhm.
dealing with a birthing client, they're already pregnant and they're coming to us, and you know, it's I'm a big proponent and advocate for therapy. I encourage, go to therapy. First of all, birth is beautiful. Birth is cathartic, but it's also traumatic.
Mhm.
It's traumatic on your body, your mind, your spirit. Like there has to be a part of you that dies to birth this new version of yourself. It could be the most beautiful birth. There will be some level of healthy trauma that comes
Mhm.
through. So I'm a big advocate for therapy. But if not, meeting yourself where you're at. So whether it's meditation, journaling, yoga, doing something in which you can strengthen your bond with yourself, because whether you like it or not and you say like you can trust yourself, you can't trust yourself, you're going to have to trust yourself. You're going to have to trust that you and baby are working together in perfect harmony. And that's or this just doesn't happen.
That's the work. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the work. You
There's a
have to.
certain level of work that needs to be done. And I, of course, whether they decide to do therapy or not, there is a certain level of emotional preparation I like to do with my clients. Just keeping the dialogue open, staying close, and realizing this is where we become a mother. So to divorce the idea that our relationships with our mother isn't going to affect this process at all, that would be a huge negligence on our part. So just kind of bringing that up, I that tends to be a question that I ask my clients as well, is how's your relationship with your mom? And just like briefly letting, like because it does come up, either consciously or unconsciously, something will come up. So
Yeah, yeah. I like also journaling and giving like little journal prompts and stuff.
yeah.
If you had to give a tip to somebody who wants to become a doula, what would you give them?
Um, know your why, hold on to your why. This is as beautiful as this work is, as rewarding as this work is, we've all had it. We've all had the moment where it's just like, what? Like, mm-mm.
I'm
I'm
like,
like, I think I'm gonna tap out now.
yeah.
And it's not just to one thing. It's we can't just say like, oh, that only happens when this happens or that only happens here. This is emotional, powerful work. And with that, it's going to come many different emotions. So just remember your why. And this I think I don't know many industries like ours where with being a doula, you have to just jump in head first. There is no let me hold your hand as you go through this. I could talk to a new doula and speak to her about the hundreds of births that I've done. I could literally go through every single one. It's not going to prepare her or them for what how they're going to be and what their experience is going to be like or what their reaction to birth is. You have to just experience. You have to throw yourself into a birth to know what birth is going to be like for you, how you're going to react. I think that I was blessed in the fact that I became a doula after I was a mother. So I got to experience birth twice. I also was attending births before I knew what a doula was, just like as a support, as a coach to the people that I loved around me. So I had that experience. I wasn't going into being a doula with absolutely no experience. And I think you could speak for that as well because you had your sister's birth before you took on others, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not like we were kind of just jumping in without any idea or knowing. But this is one of those things where you just have to dive right in. There's nothing any of us could teach you, say to you. Obviously, educate yourself. Knowledge is power. Application of that knowledge is, even more powerful. But you have to just jump right in.
Yeah, that's what I always say. You can go to the trainings and the classes, whatever, even get your certification. But if you don't attend a birth, you can't really do anything with all that information, or you won't know yourself. You won't be certain of yourself that you can actually do it or that you actually even want to do it.
Exactly.
So, um, what do you do for self-care after a birth?
Ah, self-care after a birth. So when I go to a birth, that oxytocin high, no, the birth in general always makes me really, really miss my family. Like I crave my husband and my boys. So typically coming out of a birth, I'm getting my favorite meal. If it's not cooked for me, I'm ordering my favorite meal and I'm cuddled up with my guys and we're watching a movie or just processing through immediately after I'm processing through the birth. So it's typically with my husband and I'm just going through everything, which I call him like the dad doula because he lives for this. He's my biggest fan, my biggest advocate, and I've had to bring him in on birth to like help with dads as well. So he loves it. But we process through it together. I just go through everything that happened. And then the days following, it's a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga, journaling, processing, even reaching out to people in the birth world. Like I've probably spoken to you more than a handful of time after a few of my births because it's one thing to process with someone who's experienced birth but isn't in the birth world versus someone who's in the birth world where they're the things that I say that you just get and the things that I don't say that you get. Like that's important too to have that support, to have your tribe, to lean on your village. Because like I said, birth is beautiful, it's powerful, it's magnificent. I am truly honored and privileged that I get to do it, but there is a certain level of trauma
Mm.
that comes, that's there that especially, well, not especially, but for me, I see it most typically with my hospital births. So for hospital births, I have to take extra care, extra self-care of myself.
Yeah, definitely. Extra.
Yeah.
Shoo, shoo,
Yeah, exactly.
those hospitals. So I'm a doula, you're a doula. Most doulas that I know and that I talk to do are like jack of all trades and do a million other things. So what other things do you do besides doula work and besides like your job?
Um, right now, I am currently in school to be a licensing therapist. So after seeing all the trauma women bring into birth or take with them out of birth, or the trauma women just almost refuse to let go of sometimes or were attached to, I found myself uh, unofficially being a therapist to a lot of my clients, especially when you're having to do a natural birth. That's a whole nother level of facing yourself. So I figured, let me go back to school and be able to support the women in my community. So that's currently what I am doing. Um, yeah, I also, my husband has his own business that I help out with. My family has their own business that I, help out with. I homeschool my boys.
My
I train
God,
jujitsu.
you do it all.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah,
I love that.
that's one thing that's helped me a lot too. Training Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like as
Mm,
my self-care for births, just because now you have a physical way to tangibly get that trauma, that stress out of your body.
yeah,
Especially after one of them sad hospital births. Like,
yeah, I know. And you just picture the the doctor's face on.
we're naked.
Um, how do you find your clients, or how do your clients find you?
I'm truly blessed. My clients are really big on putting my name out there and referrals, referrals, referrals. I also use Doula Match. Um, Honestly, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I haven't pushed. I haven't put myself out there as much as I probably should. So a lot of it that has come, like I said, I'm super grateful to my clients. Like it's incredible how many clients can get you so many referrals, and
Hmm.
even just family and friends as well. Once someone knows you're a doula, like for example, I train jujitsu, and one of the guy's wives was pregnant, and she was like, my husband was talking about me being a birthing doula to somebody else. And then his wife was like, "Do you know what a doula is? Because we need one." He's like, "I do know one, and she trains at my gym." So I'll be attending their birth. But yeah, once everyone knows, I think now more than ever, people are finally fully aware of what a doula is, what the benefits are. So now that my friends and family and clients know, like I'm getting more referrals than ever.
So if somebody wants to get in touch with you or contact you, where can they find you?
You can find me everywhere. No.
Ask my friends.
Yeah. No. I have to look at my phone. I'm the worst when it comes to social media. Instagram is La Luna Birth Services, LALUNA Birth Services. Um, yeah, you can reach me through there. I also have, if not, if you want to do it through my email,
Yeah,
it's
you can put
La
your
Luna Birth Doula at gmail.com. And yeah, we could schedule a free consultation, go over what my services are, see if we'd be a fit for one another. Yeah.
when would be what's like your cutoff? Like, do they have to be a certain amount of weeks, or you take
No,
them whenever?
my bigger thing is energy. I want to make
Mhm.
sure that we that I can be of support to you, that we are a good fit, that the energy matches and the vibe is right. I've had clients, I had a client sign up at like 38.5.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I've had clients that the moment the test showed positive were like, hey! So
They're so excited.
yeah.
Well, my love, those are all the questions I have for you. Do you have any questions for me?
Um, no, I
I'm like
just
falling asleep with this anxiety tea.
love your anxiety tea, by the way. Love all your herbs. No, I just want to thank you for what you're doing and the way you're sharing your gifts with the world. We need this. The world needs this, and I'm beyond honored and privileged to not just be doing this, but to be a part of your village and your tribe. And thank you so much for what you've contributed to my life. I love you so much. So thank you.
I love you too. I'm so grateful for you.